Hi everyone, it's Miss Ellis here again in my little sunroom, we call it, even though there's not much sun right now. It's pretty chilly up here, so I'm wrapped in a blanket and I've got my warm coat on so I can record these lessons for you today. So this is the introduction, the welcome, just letting you know kind of what this is. So my name is Miss Ellis. I've been a teacher for almost 15 years now here in Boston. I've worked predominantly with younger learners, but I've always had a really sharp focus on thinking skills and organization skills and self-regulation. So I teach with a lot of those things embedded. So I'm trying to infuse those things into some lessons for you to support the COVID-19 quarantine. So the way these are intended is to be something you can do together as a family. It's really not meant to sort of like leave your child to be entertained. It's really meant to be something like structuring a lesson for you to do with your children together. So there'll be questions, there'll be times to stop, there'll be times to even write things down, and then there'll be times to do some projects. So the way this will work is I'm recording a bunch of different lessons that go in order. So I really suggest that you do book 1, then the work for that, and then book 2, because everything builds and I'm asking them to make connections between the texts. So if that's too much for you, you can do a little mini unit. So every 3 to 5 books or so sort of goes together. And I will update in the channel description or in the lesson description which lessons sort of go together so that you can use that for your planning. But my major goal is building thinking skills. We need children to be able to think critically about texts and information, to be able to make comparisons, to be able to speak their opinion, to be able to find evidence. So a lot of what I'm doing with these books is that sort of thinking. A lot of it comes back to a science standpoint, just because that's what I'm currently doing. But there's a lot of literacy skills that I really believe are super important for young learners. So I'm going to try to teach those as well. I've got notes here. I want to make sure I get to everything. So every lesson is going to follow sort of a formula around the important things for students to know. So we're always going to talk about the genre, and that's an important word for students to be able to learn even as young as kindergarten. So what's genre? If a book is a particular genre, what can you expect from it? And then once they know what to expect, they can sort of map that schema onto a text that they read. And then that also informs if they decide to be a writer about that thing too, they can use that same schema to help them write. It's also about there's going to be a lot of accessing prior knowledge. There'll be a lot of times when I stop and I ask you to have your child or children talk to you about something they already know or something we read previously. And that's a really important part, because the more prior knowledge they can bring, the more likely they're going to make long-term connections in the brain for memory. So definitely take advantage of those times. Pause videos if you need to really get a lot of discussion out of it. I do a lot of unpacking of the craft of writing. So how does this writer approach this topic, and how does this writer approach this topic? How is it different? So just sort of understanding the craft of writing. And then we do quite a bit of close reading as well, which means finding specific words or phrases or vocabulary that are important, and try to figure out from the context what those mean. So that's sort of the overall pattern you're going to find. There'll be these mini units, as I mentioned, of a few books that go together. At the end of those, I'm putting some project ideas. So if you're looking for, something to now extend from that, it might be a writing project, it might be an art project, it might be a science project. There's just a bunch of different ideas to help you sort of extend that and turn it into a more like project-based learning style. So all of this is just from my experience, my years of teaching. No one is telling me which books to choose. I'm choosing books from my own collection that I really believe in. So they are not meant to be the end-all be-all, but they are books that I have found to be tried and true, highly engaging, really age-appropriate, and just the right amount of stretch to really push kids to understand how books work. So I hope you find these helpful. Please suggest things, ask questions, share, comment. I'd love this to become a thing people use. So please enjoy and welcome.